What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and in today's video, we're going to discuss why JDG will win the LPL Spring Championship. So, the way that we're going to talk about this, I'm going to quickly discuss the LCK Finals and the LEC Finals, as well as maybe some of the things that I can just randomly think of about the LCS that happened over the weekend. But then we'll look at the matchups moving forward for the LPL and kind of figure out, what should we be looking for in teams. And a part of that is because of the results we've seen from other regions. So first up, the matches that we will be talking about are V5 against Top Esports, V5 a slight favorite at minus 156, and then RNG against JDG. JDG is the underdog. So let's talk about Korea first. So in the finals, we had T1 and Gen G. Yes, T1 has looked like the best team so far, maybe in the world. A big reason why they have been so strong is because of their flexibility, like their flexible champion pool for the entire team. But the most important part of this is the bot lane, and I've said it before, I think that Keria is the best support in the world, and I think he might be the first support to ever win the LCK MVP. But his playstyle is kind of perfect for a team that has flexible drafting, because in the finals he played Lux, Nautilus, Tahm Kench, and Thresh. So he can play a little bit of everything, which a lot of these players on professional teams are proficient at all of these champions, but they don't necessarily know how to get the most out of them in every professional match. It's a lot easier to understand how to play a champion in a solo queue environment than it is to function in a structured team environment. So with T1, going back to why it's so important to have a really good and really flexible bot lane, is because not only can they play the hard carry style with Gumayusi, they can also punish the hard carry style with Gumayusi and Keria playing aggressively with a utility AD carry, plus different supports to punish the weaknesses of the AD carry that's selected by the other team. So in their first game against Gen G, we see Ezreal against Kate Lux. Kate Lux are going to be the more powerful combination in the laning phase. That's going to give Caitlyn the ability to build up a lead in the early game and the mid game. Both of those champions are going to be able to poke out Ezreal. So Ezreal is going to be fearing for his life for most of the laning phase. Then you have Ryze who can come bot lane. You have Nocturne who can come bot lane. Just a pretty easy way to play the game, because Ruler is the heart and soul of Gen G, really, and they kind of just put an X on him and they attacked, and that was a smart way to play the game. In the second game, we see T1 flex over into a Jinx game, and I do think that Jinx is still the most important champion for drafting, because while we did see on patch 12.5 there are a lot of utility AD carries that are coming to the forefront, like Xayah, for example. People are playing Ezreal, people are playing Caitlyn, which is more of a lane bully, and then we have Zeri, who I guess Zeri doesn't really qualify as a utility AD carry, but she's closer to a utility AD carry than she is a hard carry like Jinx or Aphelios, because her mobility is more akin to those style of champions. And I think that the players who are very good at things like Kai'Sa AD carry, or when that was the key meta, those players are more likely to be good at Zeri in a pro environment. So we saw the Xayah versus Jinx matchup. Xayah is thought of as one of the main champions you can play against Jinx, and it's because she's stronger in the laning phase. They have different build paths. So Xayah is lethality, and she's going to spike earlier in the game than the Jinx is. So if you're trying to build up a snowball, you can attack that from an economic perspective as well. So the Xayah will be probably getting more gold during the laning phase, because of the threat that she has in the laning phase. T1 is good enough to play around it for sure, but that's kind of the mentality And if you look at their draft, it is a lot more of an early style draft. But T1 goes straight back into it. Jinx against Xayah Jinx has still been very good against it, because a lot of the teams that are playing Xayah against Jinx are teams that are playing against T1, knowing that T1 is going to play Jinx, so they want to play Xayah to play for a different portion of the game. But T1 at their core is a Jinx playing team, because Gumayusi is a very good AD carry, especially at Jinx. So they played 3 Jinx games in a row against Xayah, and they won. So this is important to me, and this is something that I would take a look at for the other matchups, is that there is still a high priority on the Jinx Aphelios side of things, and that's what we want to see. Then in the LEC, we had G2 with a huge upset. I guess it's not really as big of an upset. They have been playing very well recently. But in this matchup, we had the utility AD carries kind of coming out on top. And this is stylistically where we're going to see teams go. So Flocked played Misfortune. They played the Xayah side of the Xayah Jinx, and they played the Xayah side of the Xayah Jinx, and they won both of those games. I'm pretty sure Rogue should have won Game 3, but they threw. So the reason why I would point to this is that the matchup that we're most likely going to see is a utility AD carry against Jinx or Aphelios. So in these LPL matches, I want to kind of ask the question, is this player more likely going to play Jinx Aphelios, or are they going to play something completely different and play like Zeri, Xayah, Misfortune, Kai'Sa, just something else. Like I know Kai'Sa's not really being played in the bot lane. But let's take a look at the first matchup in China. So the first matchup is Top Esports against V5. So we have Wayward against Rich. They're both about the same talent level. I don't think that it's going to be the deciding factor in most of the matchups between these two teams. Could it be the case that Rich has a really good series or Wayward has a really good series? Yes. Am I going to pick a winner based on that specifically? No. Then we have Tian against Karsa. Karsa is the better player in my opinion. I expect there to be an advantage for V5 in the jungle. In the mid lane, we have Knight against Rookie. This is interesting because Rookie has had the better split, but Knight has played very well as well. And like I just think that Knight is more likely going to play the explosive, volatile side of this matchup, where I would be less surprised if Knight came out and completely dominated the series, where he just is picking things like Akali, Kassadin, because Kassadin isn't like a great champion right now, but if V5 is like not like lazy in the drafting, then Knight can pick something with that kind of ceiling, with the insanely high playmaking late game carry champion. So I do expect there to be a slight Knight advantage in the mid lane. And then in the bot lane, we have Jackie Love and Mark against Photic and PP God. And I'm pretty sure that Top Esports has been playing a lot of Aphelios, which that is kind of what I want to see. Is to see like Aphelios or Jinx. And then I had this on the screen before. I forgot what the outcome was. But I'm looking for V5. Oh, whoops. Oh, well, V5 hasn't played recently. So basically it comes down to, in my mind, it's going to be even in the top lane, slight advantage to V5 in the jungle, it's slight advantage to Top Esports in the mid lane, and then the question is around which bot lane is more likely going to carry. And personally, I think that V5 has the stronger bot lane. Jackie Love is a world champion, but when Jackie Love was a world champion, it was more important to be able to play the high upside Kai'Sa style of play, where you're diving into the back line of the enemy team and trying to assassinate the other AD carry. So Jackie Love, I feel like Jackie Love and Top Esports are more likely to play the utility side of things, and that's going to give V5 the hard carry side of things. And if that's the case, I prefer V5 for that reason. They are slight favorites. I wouldn't be shocked if Top Esports won, but like I said, this just feels, and this could be completely wrong, I feel like the meta is moving in that direction where you have top laners who are more focused on the late game team fighting, where we can see things like Kennen. I would expect Rich coming from the LCK. Like, we know he can play Aatrox, and we know that he can play for the rest of the team. Can he play the team fighting style with like Kennen? That's really the last thing I'd want to see from him to know if he can compete like consistently at this level, at this level in the LPL and like at an international competition, because it is just it's a very important champion and play style and way to play the game that we'd like to see from a top laner. Karsa against Tion, definitely Karsa favored. Rookie and Knight, it's Knight favored, but Rookie's definitely close enough to keep it close. It's just I would expect this match to go 4 or 5 games where Knight kind of hard carries once or twice, and then Photic and PP God, I think they will just have the better side of the matchups in the drafting. So that's definitely something that's important to watch out for. I like V5 here, and then in the RNG against JDG match, we have Gala, who this year has played a lot more of Jinx and Aphelios. So let's take a look at some of the statistics, because I know that JDG plays a lot of Aphelios Jinx, and we saw that in their playoffs so far. So in their match against Weibo Gaming, we had the Aphelios against Jinx. Game 2, we had the Aphelios against Zeri, and that's very important. That's exactly what we want to see. We want to see the Jinx side of that. And then again, Aphelios against Jinx. The one thing that's nice about seeing a player that is willing to play the Aphelios into the Jinx is that we know that either the team or the player understands that you need to attack the Jinx and play aggressively, and Hope has been doing that. Then again, be it Zeri against the Jinx, and I would see Gala more likely to play Zeri. And then last but not least, we have Jinx against Misfortune. So JDG is drafting the way that I want to see them draft, which is the most important thing for me. We get a lot of Aphelios, a lot of Jinx, and I'm not surprised that we see that from Gala, because I remember thinking at some point during the split, like, at least they're forcing him to play these champions, even if he doesn't really want to. But this is what I was kind of looking at as well, where we have 6 games of Zeri. So RNG has a higher value on Zeri than JDG does. So I would expect RNG to try to play for Zeri and JDG to play the Aphelios or the Jinx side of that matchup. And I still prefer the Aphelios and Jinx side of that matchup, because there are other ways to deal with Zeri through drafting. So if you're just trading AD carries and then building out the rest of your team composition to either deal with a Jinx or deal with a Zeri, I'd rather be the team dealing with Zeri. And ultimately, that's kind of why I think that JDG should win this matchup against RNG. So they're a plus 102 favorite. They're a very slight underdog. In the finals, we would have V5 against JDG, and what would that look like? So we would have V5 with Rich. We would have Rich against 369. I still prefer 369. 369 coming into this season was underrated in reality, because like we've seen his very high peaks, and we understand that there are very low lows, but a lot of those lows come down to drafting, which isn't always the player's fault. Obviously, we think that they should be executing at a higher level than what 369 did last year, but that just kind of happens. Kanavi against Karsa, I still prefer Kanavi. I've preferred Kanavi, and I just think that they're a better player than Karsa, which is not trying to take anything away from Karsa. It's just that a lot of people wouldn't really put Kanavi ahead of Karsa, but I do think it's an advantage. And it's it's a place where JDG is the team that's more likely to exert pressure through the jungle, because Kanavi is a better early and mid game player than Karsa in terms of attacking the other team. Then we have Yagao against Rookie. Rookie is definitely the better player. Long term, short term, whatever kind of class you want to take into consideration. I just think that Yagao is good at what he does, and when you get into a meta where Yagao has like 3 or 4 champions that he can just rotate between and isn't necessarily going to be punished by the other team, then he is a very good player to have in your roster, because you're going to get a consistent level of performance. And that's ultimately why V5 playing against JDG is better for JDG. If you had Top Esports, and we saw this when they were playing against each other in the finals in like 2020, Top Esports is more likely to play a mid lane champion that attacks Yagao and tries to exploit that talent discrepancy in the mid lane. I don't think that we'll see that as much from V5. And then in the bot lane, which is ultimately the reason why I think that JDG is kind of in the driver's seat to win the LPL playoffs, is that their bot lane is placing the highest priority on Jinx and Nephelios. So, if we get Hope and Missing against Photic and PP God, I think that we will probably see Jinx against Nephelios a bunch of times over again, which I'm completely fine with. And, if you watched my other video about my futures, I would, if it's V5 against JDG, then I win either way. So I'd be pretty happy. But yeah, so that's basically it. I think that these are the kinds of points during a season where I'll find a group of champions that I really want players to play, or like a prioritization of Dragon, or playing around specific objectives. This is kind of at that point, so I feel pretty good about this. I think that there's definitely a chance that Top Esports just out talents V5, because I do think that Knight has a different level. Yes, I think Karsa is better than Tian, but I don't expect Karsa to hard carry the entire thing and mitigate Knight while doing it. Yeah. So that's basically it. I think that JDG is the team that I want to win the most, not only because I have that plus 3,300 on them, but also because I kind of think that it's time for Kanavi to take that next step. Kanavi's already thought of in China, I think, as one of the best junglers. It's just, they haven't performed at the international level. They haven't been given that opportunity, really. And I think that hopefully that comes this year. So that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.